Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. And I have a special guest and friend in the house today who I just got to meet for the very first time, which is like blows my mind because you think we would have known each other by now. But that's the power of video. You feel like you know people even when you haven't met. So I have Hannah Morgan in the house today, and I'm just going to pop up our topic so that people see what we're talking about. So we're talking about from career expert to published author, Hannah Morgan's journey with McGraw Hill. So that's our topic today. And Hannah, before we get stuck in, can you please tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll get chatting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm glad to be here. And I feel like I already know you. Okay, so my name is Hannah Morgan. I'm also known as the Career Sherpa. I have been writing and speaking about modern job search strategies for the past many years, a long time, over 20 years. And when I got started, there was nothing online. It was only in books to help people with job search. So myself and a bunch of other resume writers really sort of built all of the content that was online. And I've remained friends with those resume writers and career coaches and recruiters ever since. And collaboration is the name of the game. I really am a strong believer of that in any business getting started. So I have been fortunate to be named by LinkedIn as a top voice in job search and careers for the content that I created back in, I think it was 2019. And ever since then, I've just continued to do what I love doing, which is dispensing actionable career advice.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So you have the honor of being one of my few guests that has come on that is had a traditional book deal. Most of us are self-published, which is absolutely okay. But it was just so wonderful to have this opportunity to talk with you, Hannah, about sort of being on the other side that like kind of everybody dreams of one day. McGraw Hill is like nothing to snit at. That's one of your big traditional publishers. So let's just kind of, pull back the layers and talk about how did you even get this book deal? How did it all start?
Yeah. So I have to say, this book was published in 2014. The Infographic Resume. I'm trying to see where McGraw Hill is on here. It's probably on the spine. Anyway, 2014. So prior to 2014, I had been doing a lot of presentations at conferences. And of course, I'd been writing consistently about job search, but the topic that I had been consistently talking about was online visibility. And so that meant having a social media presence. That might mean lots of different things. And that was what I was speaking about. At all these career conferences, there was also another conference that was not career related that I spoke at on the same topic. And so that caught the attention of one of the editors at McGraw Hill. I don't even know if she's called an editor, but we'll call her an editor. And she contacted me out of the blue, just through email, and said, Hannah, I'd love to talk with you about the concept of writing a book. And can we set up a time to talk? So I'm like, okay. So we spoke, and she did not have a firm idea about what she wanted the book to be about. We were talking about online visibility kind of stuff, and I think it was probably a joint decision that we've settled in on the infographic resume.
Awesome. So maybe backtrack. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. There's a little bit of a lag, and I think my computer is slow, so I apologize.
That's okay. We're always good. That's live and it happens, so it's not a big deal. So maybe just tell us what is sort of your book about, because I think that helps too. So the infographic resume, that's kind of like it's totally different, which I think maybe that's another thing with book rating. You want to have a book that's different because if it's the same thing, then like what makes your book different? What makes you different? So give us a backstory of what the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
infographic resume even is.
So an infographic resume, and back in the day when I wrote this, there was a lot of conversation around alternative resumes. An infographic resume is a visual representation of your work experience. Of course, there's
Mm,
text on it too, but it includes pie graphs and um, sliders and pyramids and infographics with data like little call outs, so different ways of presenting your achievements rather than all text.
mm.
I don't even know if anyone can see this, but this is
Ooh,
sort of an
ooh.
example. So the the what was going on was it was an employer's market, meaning that there were a lot of job seekers in the marketplace that were trying to get recognized, and the standard resume wasn't doing it. So there were a few people, mostly in the creative space like marketing, that started using these. And
Mm.
so I picked up on it and I talked to a lot of them and asked to see their samples. And so it was a way for job seekers to get noticed that was sort of outside of the box.
Love
And there
it.
was a need for that back in 2014. Oh, by the way,
I
there's
love
a
that.
need for it again now.
Well, see, that's the thing. And that's what I love is that this is such an out of the box thinking that it's still relevant today because I have never seen a resume like that. And I know that you also do videos with your business. Part of your business is doing videos for job seekers. And I can see how this all kind of goes together because you're appealing to visual people. And, we just know now that sometimes a wall of text, we shut down reading it. So seeing things in an infographic, I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely
So, and
brilliant.
I have to say, there's always a caveat, right? The caveat is it doesn't replace the standard resume, it's a supplement.
Mm, mm. I like that. I like that. Okay, so you work together to come up with this interesting topic. It's novel, it's new. Obviously, one of the high points in the book is that you actually have examples. So it's a very visual book with the graphics. Did you have to do that too, or did they do that for you at McGraw Hill?
So, yeah. Um, there's a lot of things that we don't know that book publishers do and what they don't do. I not only had to write, I had to gather all of my own examples. Um, they did lay out the design of the book, and actually, I'm sort of happy with the way it did. There's again, you can't see. There's each section has a different color border at the bottom to represent what it is. So that was nice, with sort of visual and in color. They did the cover. They sent me 2 or 3 different versions. I didn't love the cover, but I guess it's better than nothing. So they did design the cover. They did do the layout, but all of the illustrations, everything in the content was mine. On the back, there are wonderful reviews, snippets, which, oh, by the way, I also had to get. So I had to send the book in advance, or a draft of the book in advance, to people that I thought would be influential in the career space, that would also be willing to write a couple of lines that we could use in the back of the book to promote it. So that
I
was
love
all me
that.
too.
I love that. So BYOB, bring your own blurb. You have to have that have other people do that for you. So let's talk about, okay, so you decide on the book, you write the book, you get all the graphics, and then with self-publishers, once we're done, we just hit that upload to Amazon and we're done. But I don't believe that works when you're with a traditional publisher? So what happens? What's sort of your timeline?
So in this case, with writing this book, I submitted that to them, my timeline. In other words, these are the different sections that I will have written in a due date. And I asked, would you like me to send you in the very beginning, sort of a sample of the first chapter to make sure that my style of writing and what I've gotten so far is in alignment with what you're looking for? And they said no. But they did take the outline of due dates. So for my own sake, I said, I would feel more comfortable that if I am, when I'm halfway through this outline and due dates, that I send all of that to you so that your editors can begin looking at it. Just so if I need to make any adjustments to the second half of the book, I can do that. So we did it that way. And I would say there were very, very few edits from the editor.
Wow. Wow. That's great. That's great. And
which I guess was good, but it wasn't really good.
well, I suppose that's why, you were preparing for the book before you even wrote the book because you were a content creator. So you're constantly writing, you're writing blog articles, you're doing different things. And, those are the training wheels that get you ready for being an author, because we're always honing our craft, and writing is a craft. And how can I say it shorter? How can I make it more clear? All these things are important. So, maybe you're just a really good writer. They didn't have to make too many changes.
Well, here is the thing. I was a co-author with Miriam Salpeter for this book by Learning Express 2 years earlier. And Miriam had already written a book, and she was very helpful in understanding the process of writing and reviewing each other's work and meeting a deadline. So I don't think I would have been as prepared to write my own book from scratch if I hadn't worked with her, because I was given so little guidance by McGraw Hill about what they wanted to see. If I hadn't had that experience writing with Miriam Salpeter, I never would have known any of this stuff.
Wow. Wow. That's good to know. That's good to know. So sometimes going and doing a small project where maybe it's a chapter in a book, in somebody else's book, or co-writing a book with two of you together, that's a really good training guide so that you can kind of see what's all involved. Because I know before the show started, we laughed and we talked about writing a book is like having a baby. It's, there's so many great analogies with, it's not just write the book and then you're done and everything's fine. That's just the beginning. Now you got to raise that thing for 8 years. And I laughed. I told you mine are toddlers. Like, there's still so much you have to do. Can you talk about the marketing?
There is. And, yeah. So, one of the reasons I believe the McGraw Hill contacted me was because I had my own blog. I was sort of well established on social media at the time. I had a lot of followers on Twitter. I was very active on LinkedIn. So I already had a lot of that social media presence. When I asked them what they were going to do to market the book, they're like, oh, we've got a great idea. We're going to create this mock-up of a infographic resume for Einstein or somebody like that, and we'll use that as promotion, and we'll give you bookmarks. And that was it. The rest of it was up to me.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So no
They did
booking you
nothing.
on shows, no bookstore signings or anything like that? Wow.
Nothing.
So you
Nothing.
had to
And
take
so here's the
your
other thing.
marketing in your own
Sometimes I
hands.
know, yes, they put it in their McGraw Hill catalog of books so that libraries and schools could order it. That's about it. And I had to buy, they gave me 100 books maybe. So if I wanted to give gifts to books to all of the people that contributed to this, I was going to have to buy my own books from them to send to the people that were beyond the first 100.
Wow. Wow. Did they at least give you an author copy rate, or do you have to get it at retail?
Small discount.
Wow. Wow. That's, and that's so much of your marketing, especially like if you're on a podcast. I know sometimes people will send me their book before a podcast and, which is always very nice. It's not required, but there's just so many times where your book being, a gift really can open doors for you, especially if you want to do speaking.
Right. And it's not that expensive of a book, right? I could have bought a lot of different, a lot of my own copies to do that, but it just 100 books, that goes quick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, so we've talked about the marketing. We talked about, who approached who. What are some of the things that you're like, I had no idea? Like what are some of sort of those big lessons that you learned that you were actually really surprised at?
I'm still surprised to this day that they didn't do more to market the book, to promote the book. Getting me, just introducing me to people, or whatever. What that to me was the biggest surprise. They did have me talk to somebody who was in the marketing department, who actually I went to college with, which is a really small world. But even when I knew the person in the marketing, she still didn't do anything more than what she was going to do.
Wow.
I The time frame moves quick. Like, they want this out the door as quickly as possible. And so I think my deadline for myself was maybe 9 months. But then beyond that, they moved really quickly on their part to get it published and out the door. All of the releases I had to get, so there are over 100 images in here from people. After I had started the process of screen capturing their stuff, I had to then go back and get all of the permissions from all of those people whose resumes I was using. And I had to do that. So
Wow.
there's just a
Wow.
lot of legwork.
That's an eye opener, because I think people think, oh, I can just Google any graphic and throw it up. But it's like, no, you can't. And, I know recently with one of the books I did, that it's like anybody who took a photograph at the conference, I had to go get the permission of the conference photographer and make sure he was okay. We had another visual because we had a sketch note artist and she was doing a visual. I had to get her permission. And it was just like, wow, like it was kind of one of those things. I didn't know what I didn't know until all of a sudden it was like, I wonder if there's any legal ramifications before I do this. So that's good for people to know too. I like that.
Right. Yeah.
It's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop over and
What
see if we have
else?
some see if we have some comments here. So we have Jeff Young is here and he says greetings from self-publishing with
Hey,
help from
Jeff.
Gillian. He's in the front row. Everybody knows Jeff. He's great. He's ready to hear Hannah's publishing journey. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. David Cos is here. Hello, good afternoon. And he says, welcome, Hannah. So you have friends. You have friends and fans. Hannah has over 300,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I am pleased to be one of them. Oh, isn't that lovely? That is lovely. And Hannah, this is probably something that's
Thank you,
really,
Jeff.
really important, is having the audience before you write the book. Because I think a lot of people, they go, I'm going to write a book and it will make me famous. And that doesn't happen. So how did you build, like, this is a huge base. How did you build 300,000 followers?
Yeah, but my 300,000 followers didn't happen until after I wrote the book. So at the time I wrote the book, I probably had 20,000, maybe something like that. So I did have a big presence on Twitter at the time, 2013, 2014. That was really the platform to be on. So I had a great presence there. I had been, again, quoted by a lot of big publications. Wondering if at that point I had a regular article on US News and World Report probably around that time. So I had name recognition. So that definitely helped a lot. That's part of the reason I believe they were interested in me.
So I think that's probably something for people to recognize, that it's like you have to build the platform first. And then if you want to, basically you were lucky they found you. But for others who are thinking, oh, I'll just do a query letter and I'll do a book proposal for, Penguin or something. It's like, well, if you've only got 100 followers, it's probably, you're not showing that you're going to be able to sell books. And I think they look at you, as much as they love your book, and what the idea is, at the end of the day, they have to make money, or else what's the point? They're not just publishing because they think you're cute.
No,
Um,
no. And those are such good points.
yes. And David says, intriguing concept, especially for visual careers. And is this infographic only for particular kinds of jobs, or would you say, Hannah, it could be for any kind of job?
When I wrote this book and I was doing my research, I found examples in almost every occupation, from customer service through CEOs, right? And everything in between. But when I did more research, it was evident that people in creative fields, marketing, designers, they already had the skills to create these documents, the infographic resumes. So they were the first to really get started with it. But as they became sort of more eye-catching and more people heard about them, they would contract and ask designers, in other occupations to do it for them.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So they're kind of like the outliers, which, they're always going to be the first. It's like the people who buy the brand new iPhones. They're always going to learn about it first, which is good. So do you see this comment from Jeff? He says, Hannah, how do ATS systems react to an infographic resume? And if you can back up, tell people what that even means, because not everybody might be aware of ATS.
Yeah. So the caveat that I said earlier was that the infographic resume is a supplement to your resume. Really has to do with this. When we submit a resume online through an applicant tracking system, like in Indeed, they ask you to upload your resume, or on LinkedIn, it asks you to upload your resume. That has to be a text document. Has to be. The applicant tracking system, ATS, cannot read images or graphics. So we can have an infographic resume in our LinkedIn profile. Great way, put it in the featured section, right? Great, throw it out there. But when we apply to jobs, we have to use an ATS friendly, or an a resume that applicant tracking systems can read, and that's text. This is great for networking if you're going to be meeting with somebody, or they're even great to bring along when you go in for an interview to help give them, the interviewers, a better perspective of who you are.
I love that.
So a supplement, not a replacement.
I love that. And, to be honest with you, I'm a very visual person. So I know even when I do, like if I'm preparing to speak, I would rather have a drawing and look at that drawing, and then I know what I'm talking about, than having a long list of bullet points. So I could see that it would even be something like, okay, I'm going to just have that up on my screen. So the interviewer, if I was doing a virtual interview, and then I've got all my talking points, because it's like, oh, okay, there's a little, bar graph, and it's like showing 30, 40, 70, now I can talk about, oh, and when I worked with the team, we did this. So I could see it for so many different reasons. Just, it's great. And I think a lot of us are visual learners. We're consumers. We consume content visually. So it would even be a good thing if I was newly unemployed and I wanted other people to be looking out for jobs for me, sending that resume, then they might be more aware of, oh yeah, Gillian would really be good at this because look at all these like little cute marketing things she's done or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So David said, did you have an editor review prior to submission? So you said they kind of were like, no, we'll wait. But you were like, no, I'd really like you to see it. So I think you've kind of already covered that. You said at the halfway mark. Um, did they do the sort of line by line editing or?
I did not hire an
Okay. Okay.
I honestly don't know what they did because I didn't get much feedback back. I got as I said, very little feedback. I think it was all like each page each resume followed sort of the same format. So I guess I did well in structuring each chapter so that it flowed and made sense, but very little corrections. And I did not have it edited on my own prior to going to them. Some people may do that because they want that, but I just relied on them to do the editing.
I love that. I love that. So Tina Jarvit is over in Brussels, Belgium, and she says it's a small world and it's important to make people care about you and your world. And then she also adds, I didn't know you had a book. So good that you came to the live. So that's probably the biggest thing, Hannah, is that we write these books and our book is still relevant. Like your book, it's as relevant today as it was, in 2014. So what would you suggest, down the road now? How do we keep reminding people that we have a book? Because people might not know.
You know what? If I were really great, I would always be promoting my book. But it's almost like networking. We get tired of doing it after a while. So that's a really good point. You think once you this is true with anything we do, right? Oh, I put it out there, it'll take care of itself. But it doesn't. It needs our constant attention and nurturing. So I think, it's up to every person who publishes a book to have something in their monthly calendar cycle that is promoting the book.
Yes. Yes. Always,
I
yeah.
get tired of it after a while. I'm tired of
Well,
talking about
but I think that the hard part is, I think there's sometimes, oh, I'm being too salesy. I keep talking about my book, my book, my book. People are getting sick of me. But on the other hand, there's constantly new people coming into our networks and they'll be like, you had a book? I didn't know you had a book. I want to buy your book. And so it's almost we're doing a disservice to people if we don't put it out there. So, having it in your featured section, having, I noticed with your LinkedIn profile, you use the publications. So you have it in your publications. These are all little teeny things, but literally I've gone to some people's profiles and they've written a book and I'd say, I would never know that you wrote a book because there's nothing about your book anywhere. So it's like, we have to toot our own horn.
I know. And I think that that's hard to do. It is.
Yes, yes, definitely. So you've done a book with a co-author. You've done this book by yourself. I always like to ask, is there another book in Hannah that Hannah's maybe thinking, okay, this is my next one. I'm working on it or I'm thinking about it. Sort of do you want to go do another one by yourself? What's sort of in your future?
Okay. So I can kid no more. I've done it. I can't do anymore. I've published 2 books. No more. I can't do it anymore. It's really, really hard work and it takes full time commitment for a so I don't see myself writing another book. The matter of fact, I was asked to write another book and I turned it down.
But that's brilliant to know to know, okay, I did it. check mark. I'm happy with it. And if anything, it's just like, okay, just work towards continuing to let people know, continue to let people see the value that's out there, and that this book is still 100% relevant. And it might be exactly what somebody's needing to get to that dream job right now. Wonderful. Wonderful. So we've come to the end of our 30 minutes. At this point, Hannah, unless
That
there's
went
something
fast.
you'd like to say, is there anything you'd like to say before we end our show?
Good luck. Write that book. And
I
see
love
what
that.
happens.
I love that. I love that. Okay, well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you all next week. And again, Hannah, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience. Really, really appreciate that. So bye, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.